Okay, sometimes you will come to your computer and when you wake up Photoshop, it's going to kind of look like this. It's not going to have that first menu that it's had. This is when usually I minimize it um, and it goes down to my bar down at the bottom, and then I can maximize it and it brings it back up. So we can still open images this way. We just go through like File, Open, browse through Bridge, whatever. If we want to do a new one, click New, but I'm going to open. And what I'm going to show you today has to do with the exposure of our image. So I've done manipulations to a bunch of these. So I don't think I have any moving ones. Oh, any images that have movement in them? No, not in this collection that I could just keep reusing over and over. Well, kind of, I guess maybe in this. Oh, do I have the original file? Oh, here we go. Here's my original. I can tell because it's the camera settings. So I'm going to open up this one. Okay, this is, I had this dog about 6 years ago. Her name was Murphy, and she went swimming at the city pool. The last weekend it's open to dogs. And so this was from that day. She has 3 balls in her mouth, even though you can only see 2. Now I picked this crop because I did like this ball up here. If we're looking at composition, she is kind of on the third. The center is like right here, so she's not there. She's below. She's in the lower part of the photograph. And then this ball over here just kind of echoes, the balls here. I kind of wish there was something over here, but c'est la vie. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some of the adjustments. When I look at this image, it looks pretty good. It was a good exposure, but I think I can maybe make it a little bit better. Maybe make the water seem, brighter, crisper, have a little bit more contrast in there. One thing I don't want to happen, her eyes are very light, so they're already very dark, I should say, and I don't want those to go darker, so you have to kind of be careful. I'm just going to click off of the crop tool that I was on, and over here is the adjustment palette. So I'm going to click on that. The other thing I'm going to do is, do you see here in the layers palette, it says background and it's locked. That's your original image. What I'm going to do is make a copy of this. Now this is one of those things where I'm going to say do as I say, not as I always do, because sometimes I forget this. But I'm just going to make a copy, and I just drag it down to this folded page right there, and it makes a copy. And this is unlocked. Okay, so it's just kind of protecting my original from whatever I may do. All right, so first I'm going to go, we're going to go through these in order. We will probably not only get to a couple today, but that's okay. Let's click on brightness contrast. So when I click on that, it opens up the properties of that tool. So you'll notice that my tab went from adjustment and now is in property. So the brightness has to do with my exposure. So let's say your exposure was way dark or way light. You can kind of correct it a little bit this way, but it's really better to, kind of play with that. So I'm just going to up the brightness a little bit. But then my shadows got a little bit dark, so I'm going to see if, well, I don't know if I want to do it here. Here, if I move the contrast all the way over, it's going to go very gray. And if I move it all the way to the right, it gets too funky looking. So usually this is just a little bit of movement. I'm going to leave that at that. Now look down at our layers palette. You will see that the symbol for brightness contrast, which is that sunshine with a half dark, half light in it. Then we have a thumbnail of the entire image, and it's in vertical because it's the whole image. And then it even says brightness and contrast 1. I may do several layers in it. I may adjust it again, so it would say, if I did the tool again, it would say brightness contrast 2. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go back to adjustment, and then let's use levels, which is the second one in. It looks kind of like a histograph or a crown, or I'm not sure how you want to describe it. This is one of my favorite tools because this shows you what we call a histogram, a range of your values. The pure black is over here on the left, the mid-gray is here in the middle, and the pure white is on the right. So this kind of shows you I've got more highlights than I do shadows. And these are movable. You can click and drag. So if I'm going to click and drag this in, just watch my little puppy here. Now, am I losing too much of her face? It's really not there that much there to begin with, but I'm just going to go a little bit in. That's kind of more true. She was a Chesapeake Bay Retriever, and they're all different kinds of, but she was kind of reddish brown. They're all different kinds of color. Now that I move the black in just a smidge, if I move it in way too much, look, it just goes too much. You can move it as much as you think your image needs it. For right now, I don't want you to go too graphic with these. I don't want you to go to, weird places here yet. The mid-gray, if I move it towards the black, that will lengthen the amount of tones I have between pure white and gray. If I move the gray toggle to the right, away from the black, it increases my darker values. So I don't know, what do you guys think? I mean, it's here in the middle, it's 100 or 1.00 rather. I mean, I kind of want the water to get a little bit darker, somewhere in there. Just very subtle differences. Now, if I want to see what my image looked like before, I can just click on these eyes. If you remember when we were talking about introducing the Photoshop, I can look at what my image looked like before the levels was applied and after. And sometimes I click back and forth to decide if I'm making it better or worse. What did it look like with hue, darkness? I think I need both of them. Now, if you don't want one, or you want to go in and adjust one of them, all you have to do is click on the little thumbnail that's next to the eyeball, and it will open you right back up where you were when you were making your adjustments. Okay, so if I thought this was a little bit, too bright, I can move this brightness down just a smidge. Now I feel like Murphy, she's too dark. So then if I go here, and I can move this down just a little bit, something like that. And I think that looks good. Okay, so again, just to get in, I'm just clicking on this negative space here to close that. If you want to get back into the adjustment and make changes, you do that just by clicking it. You don't have to start all new. Okay, so one thing about Photoshop, if let's say I'm still kind of working on editing this and someone invites me to go out, I'm going to go to File, Save As, and leave this as a Photoshop file. So I'm going to do what I usually call them are in the works. In the works, and I'm just going to name this Murphy. And I'm going to leave it as a Photoshop file, and I'm going to put it in Photos Mine. And I'm going to click Save. And then this is a Photoshop compression box, and just click OK. So then I'm going to go to lunch or go to dinner, whatever. Close that. And then when I come back afterwards, I'm going to open, and I'm going to look for In the Works Murphy. In the Works Murphy. So my thumbnail is even different. It's showing me it's a Photoshop file. So I can open it up, Takes a little bit longer, but see how all of this stuff is stored with it. So anytime you're in the work, in progress of working on something and you're not done, always back it up as a Photoshop file. Okay, those are the first two adjustments that we're going to go over. I will tell you that I use levels a lot more than I use brightness contrast. But really, you know, both kind of do different things. So now when you're done with this photo, you can crop it however you want, and then you need to resize it for the internet. Also, you know, it's not a bad idea to save it again as a Photoshop file after you've done all your, if you do any additional manipulations, right? So I'll just show you again how to resize your photo. So you go up to the image tab, image size, and then we want, here we've got, this is a 10 by 13. So really I need my 13, the highest dimension, to be 10, and let the width fall. And then I'm just going to change the resolution to 72 and click OK. And then this time I'd save it as, you know, I can override if I've done another copy, but save it as, you know, the assignment name, your name, and whatever indicator. Okay. All right. So then after you do this, you would just move on to your next image and apply the same adjustments, brightness, contrast, and levels. And don't forget to make a background copy just in case. All right. Thank you.